I'm Hannah Shepherd. I recognise some of you on the call, some of you are new, possibly you've read bits and pieces that I put out there. But basically, I'm Hannah. I am the Philanthropy Fundraising Consultant for Money Tree Fundraising. I started my career many moons ago back in community fundraising. So for me, relationship fundraising is at the heart of everything that I do. It's at my core. I moved over into pretty much volunteer fundraising with community, and then I progressed into high value. So that was working with high net worth individuals, looking at corporate partnerships, corporate new business. But if I'm really honest, major donor fundraising is probably my favourite of all the disciplines of high value, and probably something that I'm a little bit geeky about. I kind of over the years have kind of started working in major donor fundraising, building those pipelines from scratch, trying to develop those relationships, working out where's gone right, what's gone wrong, working through those stages of solicitation for major donor fundraising, and then really then got into doing transformational gifts, so looking at, you know, from everything from $500,000 to $1 million, upwards for securing gifts for charity, and then even like that's into that principal gift sphere as well. I guess alongside that as well, at times I've done capital appeals, so running a £20 million capital appeal programme, and in between managing teams and everything that comes with that. So I guess working really closely with chief execs like you might do, or your senior leadership teams, trustees, volunteers, and just those influential people to really help drive your fundraising and add value to it. And I guess the other bit there, including that, is probably working with volunteer fundraising boards, setting up giving circles. I'm a big champion about collective giving. So, you know, when we're working in organisations, making our donors feel that they're part of a movement, part of something bigger than maybe themselves or just one gift, that actually it's a whole community of supporters that are giving at high levels to drive things forward. And what do I do in my day job now? Oh, I could list it for a very long time, but a lot of it is around building major donor programs from scratch. I also like getting involved with programs that have been running for a while and kind of improving them, so tinkering, changing. But ultimately, it's about working with fundraisers like yourselves, just to kind of build those pipelines, engage those donors, build those long-lasting relationships. So we're not all starting from scratch every financial year. We kind of know where we want to go with our fundraising as an organisation in our organisations, and supporting yourselves. Really, it can be a hard job as a fundraiser. It's really rewarding, and the buzz is amazing. I won't lie. I think securing gifts and having them people say yes, they're going to give, and then the difference it's going to make for me is one of the best things about doing the job. But we also ride some pretty lows at times. And hopefully, you spending this lovely February lunchtime with me will mean that we will hit more of the highs, and you'll feel motivated to go on and do what you do day to day, meet some new people. Or if you really are still getting stuck and you're hitting the wall, by all means, you kind of know my face. You can reach out to me or one of my colleagues at fundraising, Money Tree Fundraising, and maybe we can give you tips and hints about where to go next with what you want to do. So today I'm going to talk about where to find prospects. So one of the big things I think I get asked a lot is I don't know where to find a major donor prospect. So you might be in this kind of situation. You might be thinking, eek, we've got one, we've got two, or we would like more because we can see the value of major gifts and what they could bring to our organisation, but we don't know where to go. So I always say, make sure you start with the people who already support you. So my logic to this is the people that already know you, your charity, and what you do, they are very likely to have already bought into you. If they are, like started with donors, if they have made a gift of any sort, they've made that conscious decision. They thought at some point, wow, quite like this charity. I'm going to give them my money. And I say start with them because they are probably your best ambassadors, your best networks. Those are the people who are maybe reading your newsletters, following your kind of social media. They might be, coming to some of your events. Those are people that are going to champion, other than yourselves, what you do in your area. So I'd say if you've already got anyone that has given a slightly higher gift, or has the potential to give a larger gift, start with them. Like, think about making a list of all those donors who could be in that space, and think about how could you talk to them about either uplifting their own existing gift or the previous gifts they've made, or about how they might be able to support you find more people like them within their network. So one of my favorite phrases and thinking is that as individuals, we always try and find people similar to ourselves. We like to be around people like ourselves, and donors, at high value major donors, are similar. They're going to mix, not all the time, but at times, with people like them. So they're a great place to start. And equally so, your volunteers. You might have some great volunteers in your organisations. I'm sure, every organisation, every charity has that person that knows what goes on here, who knows that. And they're part of every probably social group out there. Your volunteers are sometimes, again, people that have completely bought in, and they might be like, well, actually, turns out I went to an event with our local deputy lieutenant, and they were talking about how much, they're looking for a new charity support when they become the new high sheriff. I realised that actually there's this group that I know that meets regularly, and I think, they put on really high value events. Conversations and little bits like that from your volunteers will start helping you to map out where you want to be, who you might want to have the next conversation with. And a really good one really is to get to know your volunteers. Like, why, particularly if they volunteer in-house with you, like, why do they do it? Is it that because they've given up work for financial reasons, because they are relatively well off? Is it possible that they in themselves could be a major donor, and that they could support you not just with the fundraising, which I'm sure they love and probably is their initial motivation for getting involved, but could they also be converted into a regular donor as well? And another area I always talk about is corporate partners. So if you are fortunate that you've got corporate sponsorship in there, up those upper echelons of leadership in that corporate will probably be a director, a managing partner, someone that hopefully is doing quite well with the business. They may have major donor potential. They, might consider not just allowing their business, the company they work for, to donate to you. They may also be interested in being personally invested as well. And so it's worth working out if those type of people are already supporting or within your charity's network. I think when it comes to corporates, it might be that their business isn't doing great, but you could have that conversation with them about, who do they know? Who are they doing golf or paddle with? Or, who might, what your cause does resonate with strongly, and would they be interested, and would they be able to kind of facilitate an introduction, something on email, have a call with you, could they help build your major donor program and point you to directions? Does anyone have any other suggestions? Feel free to shout out, drop in the chat. Anything? No? Okay, don't worry, because I've got a next slide. Who else? So it could be that you've got, brilliant, thanks Ruth, volunteers indeed. Who else? It could be that your chief exec has got contacts. Who's your chief exec hanging out with? And I don't mean just on like a personal level, but professionally. Who are they having meetings with? Who do they network with? Is your organisation part of an alliance? Are they meeting some top local leaders, you know, that are in high net worth networks. You know, these are the type of people that you could ask your chief exec about. And would it be possible for their next catch up, the next meeting, for you to be involved? Could it be that they, as a chief exec, could kind of download a bit of information on this person so you can start building a profile on them and actually realize that what you do aligns to this person professionally or as a personal interest as well, and really understand how maybe your chief executive can help be that person that helps secure that gift, and how you as a fundraiser can support your chief exec into making those steps, because a lot of chief execs might not feel comfortable making asks. You know, they've got other considerations, they're not fundraisers necessarily day to day. So it's really helpful if you can take a lot of that pressure and thinking off their shoulders. The same goes for your senior leadership network. Do you have, I don't know, senior management who are also networking? Who are they meeting as part of the program delivery? You know, is there someone that they have identified that could have major donor potential, who looks, sounds, feels like a major donor, and they just don't know what to do next? Speak to your senior management team and see if they can give you some leads as well. Another one I hear quite often is trustees networks, and I could do a whole session, and if it's of interest, very happy to do it, you know, around how to engage your trustees, how to get them to really understand the value of fundraising and what their role is in to support it. 9 out of 10 times, I think trustees want to support fundraising, but they just don't know how. So it's just supporting them with those conversations, those ideas, explaining what you do in your day-to-day job and what your roles are. You know, trustees appreciate it, but they don't always know because of the bigger and wider considerations that they might think about for the charity. But trustees can play a really great link. They may not be donors in their own right, but pretty much if you sit down with them, they should also be able to highlight and think of other areas that you could go looking for potential major donors. I put staff on here. So sometimes staff can help. You know, they may have friends, they may have connections. Sometimes staff are brilliant for just knowing things. Like your colleagues know a lot of stuff about people, or conversations. They might have been to conferences or be involved in programs where certain people and organisations' names have been featured. And that intel is brilliant because you can collate that and get yourself thinking about where you could go next to look for your donors, or who is already kind of in your network that'd be an ideal person to talk to about supporting your charity. And finally, I'm going to talk about influencers. Although that says influencer people. I think in my head, I was trying not to make this sound like go onto Instagram and just find an influencer who's going to talk about your brand. That wasn't what I was meaning with influencers. I was thinking more about those people locally who can speak up for your cause. So I talked about before a deputy lieutenant. If your organisation happens to exist in a county where you've got a Lord Lieutenant or a High Sheriff, part of their remit is to support charities and get involved in the community. You know, they are brilliant because they are so well networked. If you could get a coffee or a call in with them to chat and understand, you know, their personal motivations, but also who else could support your charity, or who's funding what at the moment in the area, that can be really helpful. And you could do that within your town. You could do that across a region, so it could be across your county or your several kind of geographical areas in the UK, like the Southwest or the Northeast. But even there are people who are really influential on a national basis as well that might be close to your organisation. They are well worth speaking to and talking to them about fundraising. It's not necessarily about making an ask of them, but kind of getting them to understand what you do, the impact of the fundraising, and actually the need to grow awareness and audience to support major gifts. So in a nutshell, I've done a little, I don't know what you call this, circle diagram. This is pretty much how I always encourage people to start, is really look at the people that are your warmest, so they're the biggest people almost in a circle. You've existing donors that already bought in, like I said, they may be your mouthpiece to get out there. They may know like-minded, similar-minded, like-minded people. Your chief exec, your volunteers, your trustees, your corporate partners as well, and also those kind of influential people. Sorry, I keep saying influencers, don't I? I'm definitely thinking of Instagram, aren't I? There's influential people that are out there that are linked to your organisation. And so they're perfect ways to start. Has anyone got any other suggestions or ideas or anything they want to share about how they've maybe started looking for major donors or where they find their major donors for their particular cause? Anyone got anything they want to share? Oh yes, Amara, feel free to speak up however you'd like to chat.
Thank you. So I've only just started in philanthropy really about 2 months ago, but I've always been really active on LinkedIn. I really enjoy LinkedIn, and it's gone from my previous career in sales to here in the charity world. And to be honest, I think LinkedIn's such a brilliant resource because I can just look at what major donors are, speaking to which major donors, who's commenting on what, etc. So I think LinkedIn's also a really great place to start as well.
Absolutely. I think you're right. And it's about almost doing that bit of research or kind of identifying who's out there, because you're right, LinkedIn, and you've got to almost like put a time limit on sometimes, don't you? But you like to look and follow things through of who's liking what, who's engaging with things. But also for you as an organization and individual, it can be a great platform, can't it, for you to put your charity out there, to kind of pitch yourself as an expert in raising funds, but also showcase the brilliance of what you're doing. And I see some amazing profiles out there. By all means, if you want to, I've forgotten to do this, guys. Like, if you want to introduce yourself, feel free to drop it in the chat as well today. But like, feel free. Like, LinkedIn is such a good forum for people to connect and to see that. And I've heard quite a bit of success where people have said they've engaged with major donors in that way. Obviously not asking for gifts. That would probably contravene our processes for contacting people, but starting to build that rapport or identify and understand what makes that person tick or what might make a cohort of people tick. And I'm sure if you've been in sales, that's probably a lot of your background of understanding things. So yeah, I agree, LinkedIn is another great tool. Anything else people got to share that they've been involved with they think has been really good? No, that's all right. Don't worry. I'm going to end my presentation there. I've had a couple of questions that have come through this last week about Q&A and what people want to do, and chat through, and I can do that, which isn't a problem. If anyone's got any other questions, by all means, feel free to pop your hand up at any point or drop it in the chat to say what you'd like to do. Just checking, what is everyone's screen looking like? Have you got me as the main person talking today? Yeah, perfect. That is absolutely fine then. I am pleased that it's all running as expected. So one of the kind of scenarios that someone came to me with since the last live chat was around managing difficult volunteers. So this person's working in an organisation where they've got a little bit of a major donor programme running, so they're raising probably around £100,000 a year from major donors, which probably, I shouldn't say little, that's significant. But one of the people that are supporting is I'm going to call them a senior volunteer. They've been involved with the charity for a while. They've come with expectations of how things should work, and they've been a bit of a sticking point. So this fundraiser's found that this person's kind of objected to quite a few things. They've kind of challenged how an event previously ran, and actually at times this fundraiser's felt like this person's hindering them. The senior volunteer is just hindering what they want to do. I don't know if anyone's had a scenario like this before. If you have, again, feel free to pop stuff in the chat of what you've done or what you'd suggest. What I have found in the past, because this has happened quite a few times when I've been in my career, is really trying to understand that senior volunteer and their motivations for support. So again, most of the time, it comes from a really good place, their kind of interjections and what feels like challenges between you and them. So really trying to unpick where they're coming from, so why they support their charity. And it could be simple as sitting down and meeting with them and almost doing like a back to basics call. If you're new in the door to an organisation and you've got someone like this, it's a perfect time to do it, because you can set it out as I'm new, I want to get to know you. Tell me a bit more about like why you support us, what got you involved, what kind of things have you done over the years with us, what would you like to see us do in the future, kind of chat and discussion. And you'll really start to get a feel for who they are, what they want, and maybe their objections will start to make sense. And once you start to see that, you can kind of start seeing their perspective and where they might be coming from. Another thing as well is also like sometimes a bit hard, but not to take it personally. So the fundraiser that came to me was definitely feeling like it was them, that the senior volunteer didn't like them. And it was a personal thing. Again, I don't think that was the case, because, they went on to have that conversation with them, and actually they got to see that the volunteer just wanted the best for the organisation. They wanted, for example, the event, they just wanted to run smoothly. They had gone, this volunteer, they'd invited their friends. They didn't really want to have egg on their face. They didn't want it to flop. They didn't want it to feel awkward and odd. So they're kind of, last minute, can we change the place settings? Or, I really think you should put the banner on this side of the room rather than this side of the room, was more about them wanting to create the best atmosphere and maybe a bit of nervous energy at the same time. And then what this fundraiser then did with this volunteer was to kind of bring them in closer. So I suggested, is it possible that this volunteer just feels like they're always catching up, they're not part of the inner circle? Would they feel more comfortable if they felt they were hearing the news first, if they were like up to date? So if you're going to do another event, could they be part of like the event delivery team? Now, obviously, I wasn't saying hand over your event for your major donor prospects and, get your senior volunteer to lead it, but could you design it in such a way that you're involving them in part of the building and framing and development of the evening? Could you give them a role on the evening? And so that's what this fundraiser went off to do. She kind of brought them in, gave them a briefing early on. She kind of gave them a bit of a challenge. They didn't know where to get a venue. And this volunteer went and identified a venue which was suitable, which is great. And then she then, excuse me, the fundraiser talked about who to invite and why we want to invite people to this event, mainly around the fact that they want to do a cultivation to bring new donors in. Together they kind of built a bit of a guest list. And then on the night, the fundraiser and the charity gave this volunteer a very short speaking part. I think it was in the end around about why they supported and their personal experience. And it apparently went really, really well. And since that person's brought this kind of senior volunteer in a bit more, the fundraiser says she feels like it's not all solved. I'm sorry, I can't give you the fairy tale ending, but she says it feels a lot smoother. The relationship's better. They still have their hiccups, but the fundraiser realised it's not a personal thing now. It's driven by this volunteer's desire to kind of improve the organisation and make sure the charity hits its fundraising targets as quickly as successfully as it needs to be. So that's around kind of, I wanted to share that because that is kind of a challenge that they've had recently around managing difficult volunteers. Another thing that I'm hearing of is, and feel free to put your thumbs up in the chat if this is you, it's coming to the end of the tax financial year. A lot of charities end their financial year at the end of March. And so I've heard from at least 2 people that they're under pressure to make sure they hit their targets by the end of March, and that major donor fundraising isn't looking so healthy. So they've been asked, can you secure a major gift between now and March? Okay, at the time of us doing this today, we're on the 12th of February. Brutally honest, I was like, unless you are working with someone where you've made an ask or you are very, very close to making one, it is unlikely that you're going to secure that major gift in that time frame between now and March, the end of March. Like all things in major donors and fundraising, things can just disappear, rules can be broken, we live in the grey, but on the whole, it's going to be quite tight. If you're starting from scratch, if you haven't really started having those conversations. So I was talking with a fundraiser this week actually about what they can do instead to manage that. And I'm really, really clear. I think if you find yourself in a situation where you're in Q4 now and you fear you might not hit your target, is flag it really early, speak up, chat to your line manager, okay? Be really honest, because they're feeding up the chain further up to managers, leaders, finance, CEO. Be honest and say, look, we forecasted X amount. I'm not feeling comfortable that we're going to achieve the full amount. And be really honest what you think you can do and what you think might not be achievable. And then also be prepared and ready to say, so what can we do? And sometimes you need a manager to help you steer that conversation, and you need a manager to help you think through what could be done. We can just chat about it now. So one of the ways I've always think about this is, okay, so maybe March is too tight, but what can we start doing now to make sure that we can get ready for the next financial year and that we hit next year's targets? And so with this charity I was speaking to this week, it was around events. So they know they have a challenge with attracting new major donors. They just feel like they've got brilliant, well, they do, they have a brilliant charity, brilliant cause, but they're just not building a pipeline and bringing people in to make gifts. So they know they need to put on some kind of like attractive event. So I was talking to them about delivering a kind of cultivation event. Now, I feel quite strongly about events at times. I think they should always have a purpose. If it's for fundraising, it should always have a clear financial kind of ask, and if not on the night, massive kind of direction towards an actual ask. So this event, they've decided they're going to do kind of intimate kind of drinks reception, couple of nibbles, and invite people to one of their spaces where they do their project bases. And so I said, right, that's brilliant. So what you can do, you're maybe not going to hit the target for March, but what you can do is you can start drawing up that guest list. You can start working out who needs to be there at that event. So the aim is you want to create an event that talks about and showcases what you do, and that leads on to an ask of financial support. So you need to think about what you need money for in the next year, what you need money for now, and what you need in the future. And what can we build so that people that attend on the night feel they can contribute to that? Okay. So we've talked about the venue space and where they want to hold it. I then said to them, right, we need to look at your list of guest list. You need to put on, work out who you already know, who you would like to have there. And again, use kind of what we started talking about at the start of this session. And then start to get to know them, ready for when that invitation goes out to them. Because you don't really want to be sending cold invitations. You want to, you want your first touch point before that invitation for that person to know of you, to know what your cause does, for maybe someone to have, in their friendship group, mentioned it over coffee or whatever. So that's what they're going to do. And they're going to put on a very small, intimate drinks reception. a few canapes, and just showcase what they do. And the ask, ideally in the night, is going to be twofold. It's going to be, one, come and have a follow-up conversation with us and see this in more detail. And it's also on the night going to be about present a shopping list of options. So what can they do? What could a donor fund? And just really expand on that and put it in a participant focused environment and discussion. So instead of it being, 1-2 lines that we might see on some of our direct mail-in ads, like £50 could fund this, they're really going to unpack it and unpack what a £5,000 gift could do for, I'm going to call it Ben, in the children's hospice, for example. So that's what they're going to do, and take Ben to take the attendees on the night on Ben's journey, and put it in that way. So as I've gone off talking about the event itself, that's one way where you can help mitigate not having funds now. They're planning to raise some of the funds early in Q1 at that event, and then from the following on conversations. So the follow-up is just as important as on the night. They're plotting out what their follow-up will be with each person, and then what the ask could be for them as well. Has anyone else got any suggestions around meeting targets? Anyone else struggling with bits and pieces at all like that? No? Has anyone, before I delve into anything else, has anyone got any questions or scenarios that they're struggling with at the moment that we could open up to the group? Liv, lovely. Liv, tell me, do you want to talk us through something, and we'll try and share it and solve it as a group?
Yeah, absolutely. So I've been working at my organisation for about 3 years, and 6 months ago I moved over from individual giving to major donors. So we have a fairly healthy portfolio, but we haven't really, very much like a thank and bank approach, not much engagement. So over the past 6 months, I've started to, first I gathered all the information that I could, went through all old emails with our previous major donors, and I've tried to give them personalised updates, thank yous that are more appropriate to what they've shared that they're interested in, gifts from service users, those sorts of things. And it seems to be working well so far. We've had some lapsed donors that have donated again, and yeah, so it's gone well. But the thing that I'm struggling with, and that I hear a lot about in the research that I've done, is how important like calls and meetings are with major donors. And I've just not had anyone take me up on it, or anybody want to, at the end of every contact, I'll say, like, if you'd like to arrange a meeting or have a phone call, like, please do let me know. But I think that's maybe the bit that's stopping us from getting those really transformative gifts, that partnership where we can fund a project together. It seems maybe a couple of emails are exchanged and a gift is given, but I don't know hugely enough about what's important to them. So I think, yeah, my question is, how do you sort of arrange those meetings? I know our trust fundraisers, often the trust will come to them and say, can we arrange a meeting? Whereas maybe it's a bit different for major donors. And yeah, if there's anything that I could do differently to try and get those calls and meetings in with them.
Well, I'd say firstly, Liv, congratulations on 6 months and having such good kind of progress. It sounds like you stepped into a role where the job was the gifts coming through were quite reactive rather than proactive. And so you've spun that around. And the fact that you're seeing changes in donor behaviour already is brilliant. That's what you want to see. So you are definitely doing things right. Does anyone have any suggestions for Liv that they want to share? Anything they might have done or they might feel she could do? Go on, Amara, go for it.
Hello. Well done. It sounds so good what you've been doing. So I'm at the Passage, which is a homeless charity, and we've got a resource centre. So what I've been doing over the past less than 3 months that I've been here is speaking to every high value donor and every major donor and saying, hey, do you want to visit our resource centre? So do you have anything physical that you can take your donors to?
That's our difficulty. It's an anonymous helpline, so there isn't really a physical presence that I can invite them to. I don't know if that's our sticking point.
Yeah, it's difficult, and I'd totally struggle with that as well,
Yeah.
to be honest with you. Do you work in an office?
Yeah, we do have spaces where I could facilitate a meeting, but it's just I can't really show them the impact because it's anonymous. They can't go and listen on the call, or it's a mental health charity. So yeah, I think that is, yeah, if they wanted to come and meet me, they absolutely could, but it's just that invitation to see something isn't really there. The only thing that I had thought is I could invite them to one of our training sessions, because we do like spot the signs of when people are struggling, those sorts of things. So maybe that could be something that I could invite them along to, like a free place.
So, I mean, if I was in your shoes, obviously you've been doing it a lot longer than me, but I think I'd definitely offer up the volunteer opportunity, especially if people, you know, are retired and have lots of money and want to do something helpful. I think volunteering, or if you did say come to the office, I'll get you a fancy coffee. You never know. If is your office in London?
No, we're in Cheshire, so we're quite
So specific.
difficult. Yeah.
Yeah, I can't offer any more help. I'm so sorry.
Oh, don't, I won't lie. I've lived in Cheshire. I'd say it's a lovely place to live. If anyone's got any other suggestions, feel free. I think, Liv, one things I picked up on that you said was on your emails, you've kind of finished them with the kind of, if you'd like. I would actually change that language slightly. I would be a bit more direct and say, can I call you? You know, can I talk to you about X, Y, and Z to do with our organisation, with the helpline? And just be a bit more direct. Just something we always need to bear in mind with major donors in particular is that it's likely, and to be honest, I say it's all major donors, it's all of us. We are so time poor. Our little window for our attention spans are really small. So I would definitely just think about flipping that language. So instead of saying if you'd like, just be like, can you? Could you call me? Can I call you next week? You know, or would you be willing to meet with me in the coming weeks? You know, and just make it just a little bit more direct. So it kind of pushes back onto them that they need to reply to that email, rather than them thinking, oh, it's an if. And with an if, it's that uncertainty, isn't it? That they could leave that unanswered. I'd also say if your main kind of communication has been email and they've been coming back to you a little bit, which is great, or even if they're not, I'd probably say try and pitch your email to them to appeal to kind of their generosity. So if you've been on these calls before, you'll probably hear me talk about the recent Barclays Modern Philanthropy report, because it's been quoted loads in the sector and it's what I feel like I've been banging my head up against for ages and shouting about, which is that volunteers, donors, they want to give more than their financial capital. They want to give more than a gift. So you may have at the helpline, you may have a challenge that you are facing that politely your supporters might want to offer some input. Now, I'm not saying whatever they suggest that you take on board, like change the number to something else. No. But it is sometimes really helpful to gain people's advice and comments on how your organisation is running something, to kind of bring them in and for you as an organisation to be reflected back to what your donors hear and say. So, for example, I'll give you an example from my career. I remember I had one prospect and I was also on email, and he, you know, I was like, gosh, one of our big challenges is that we want to grow our giving. We want to build a pool of major donors. I don't know if they call them major donors. I think a pool of supporters that could help us raise £100,000 next year. As a long-term supporter, because he'd been given, say, £25 a month for X amount of years, I was like, would you be interested in just, you know, helping me talk through what might appeal to those type of people? And I'll be really honest, this particular donor said to me when I met him, first off, he said, I saw your email, I read it, and I sighed. I thought, oh God. He said, I sighed because I didn't want to do it, but he'd written it in such a way that I felt compelled to meet you for half an hour. Because I think I said, can I even meet you for 30 minutes? And because of that, when I went into that meeting, and I'll be honest, it's probably, that one sticks with me because it's one of the most brutal ones in my whole fundraising career. We're in a very nice, sparkly office, and he basically hit me with everything he didn't like about the charity. Okay, not to do fundraising, nothing I could control by either, right? And he told me he didn't like our branding, and he didn't like the emailing, and he didn't like the way that he was being emailed twice over certain stuff because he was on our database twice. Not that he knew that, but he was. And he hit me with all these kind of like things he didn't like, right? But what it did help me do was compile a list of things that I could go back to our organisation to change. So on one hand, I had that list of change. And then once I'd kind of gone through all the objections that he had, taken them, sometimes I'd offered him the counter side that I knew about, that I could say, actually, you know, our branding's rubbish, but that's because we're spending it on delivering the services. He kind of bought in a bit more. And then we got able to talk about fundraising. And I said, you know, we're looking to develop this kind of fundraising group, you know, would you want to be part of it? Because you have supported us over these years. And he said, yes, I do. So again, slightly shocked me because he's hit me with this barrage of things, but deep down, and that's the point I'm getting to, he cared, right? And he want to share something like that. So sometimes going in with a challenge that might open up a bag of worms may lead to a gift. And that donor did go on to support, and then he went on to give 6 figures as well, and he gave unrestricted as well in those 6 figures. So if you get it right, it can build up to bigger and better things. So that would probably be my tips, Liv, is think about the language in that email, make it a bit more direct, and maybe think about how could you entice them to come for that meeting or to take that call. And it doesn't have to be, you know, hours. It could be 20 minutes, 30 minutes. You know, you go to them, whatever works. That could be really beneficial. And I think someone's also possibly, here we go, Caroline. Thank you, Caroline. I saw you pop up in the chat. So I don't know if you've seen Caroline's comment. So she said, previously I've done a talk and invited people along, and I've had service providers talk and ensure to add something people might not know. And that's, again, that goes on to the other bit, as Amara said, around that visit. So I think visits and opportunities are great if you can do that. I also think sometimes it's a bit daunting for our supporters as well. Like sometimes I think they want to come to those visits, but they turn them down. And I think that's because you've just missed that step that we've talked about having that kind of coffee, conversation, telephone call beforehand. So they kind of know who you are, Liv. They kind of know that they're not going to walk through the door and you're going to ask them for like a 6-figure gift there and then. And it genuinely is about building a relationship with them. So yeah, like Caroline says, if you can do a talk and you can invite them along, again, there's no pressure on that. There's no like fundraising ask immediately. You know, it's building that relationship and touch points. If you can do that, great. A training session is amazing as well, because that gives them a real feel of what you do and how you help people. Because it's not always appropriate, and it's not always possible to bring our donors to places to see the work that we deliver. But those are great options. So thank you, Liv. Does that help?
Yeah, that really does. Thank you so much, everyone.
That's all right. If there's anything else that we've missed out there or you want to chat, by all means, just say. But good luck with that. Are there any more questions or any more scenarios? Or any tips anyone's got? There's been a lot out there on social media, on LinkedIn this week about the Beacon Collective and the NPC conference that happened yesterday. If you're interested in how that went, I'd definitely say tap into that and follow those conversations. There's a big shift in the way fundraising is going with philanthropy and hopefully going to make changes. Did I hear a voice? Mara, yes, go on.
again. So I wanted to ask you about stewardship.
Oh, yes.
And just how other people's processes work. Because at the moment, you know, I've got a plan in place, email or call all the donors, high value, major, invite them in, sit down, have a coffee with them afterwards, and then I play it by ear. I might email them and invite them to the event if they told me they were interested in events when I invited them to our resource centre. Basically, what I want to know is, do you all have strict stewardship plans, or do you play it by ear? I hope that makes sense.
Yeah, go on. Does anyone want to answer? Anyone got an answer to that?
I've just seen an email from Maria, which is saying this ages ago. Yes.
Oh, and when are you answering the question?
Morning, I'm just finding my feet. I'm just wondering.
Hold on 2 seconds. I'm not too sure if Anwen was answering the question there. Anwen, if you are, put it in the chat and I'll unmute you. Anyone else? No? Otherwise, oh, brilliant question. So I would say, if you're asking me, I would say before you have any type of kind of conversation with a potential supporter or a current supporter, do some Googling. Do a bit of that research. Have a bit of a feel around who they are, what they're interested in, what the background is. Even before you do that Google, make sure if you've got a database or any spreadsheets or however you track stuff in your organisation, go looking for them, go looking for their name, find out everything to do with how they've interacted with your organisation so far. If they are a big enough donor or they've been around long enough, make sure you're asking everyone, you know, your colleagues, you know, that could know if they know them, if they've met them. And then, yes, get on your Google. So have a bit of a plan. Have what is most important, I guess, is knowing roughly who they are and where they're from. And that's not always possible because not all people are famous enough or high profiled enough for you to work it out. They may have a really common surname like Shepherd as well. So it might be hard to pin down who they are. But have a little idea who they are. Then what is equally important is knowing what your organisation needs. So have a plan about if they were your dream funder and they basically walked into that meeting with cash ready to give you, what would they be donating towards, you know, and why? So really think about what is your urgent priority, and it could be 1 or 2 things. Think about what you've learned about them already. So what your urgent priorities are, do they align to what you think they would fund? And then have a little bit of a plan that you're going to think about taking the conversation towards funding that particular thing. Now, great fundraisers adapt to what they hear. So it's all good and well having that plan, but you need to be ready to listen and respond to how they reply to your questions in that meeting. So in that meeting, they may completely and utterly go against everything you've assumed about them already. And what you tell them is more important in some ways to what you think you know about them. So be ready for that plan to adapt. So that is why if you're meeting them for them the first times, because you're fairly new, I would not put pressure on yourself to make an ask at those meetings. You want to make sure you know them really, really well, and you want to know what the kind of things they might fund. So in that conversation, you can talk about the project and you can say, oh, do you think you might be interested in funding X, Y, and Z? Or would that be of interest to you? Like, we are looking for donors. And they might say yes, they might say no. But listen to what they say and then take it from there. Because it might be that actually they don't want to fund that at all. And you don't want to make that assumption. You don't want to push them into that corner. There may be another aspect of your work that equally is possibly a priority area or not so priority, but you would still accept the money and they could fund that. And when I say that, I don't mean it has to be a specific project. It can still be unrestricted funding, but I'm sure lots of people on this call will say you can describe what you do unrestricted in different ways, can't you? You can position it in different angles. And if anyone was on the fundraising on the Margins conference with me the other week or last month, I talked about 4 ways that you can position what you say in kind of the opportunity, vision, risk and crisis framework to kind of help bring people in to support your organisation. So just go in with an idea, but be prepared to be surprised, be prepared to think on your feet. But the most important thing is listening. And again, I do crack on about this all the time, that 80-20 rule. Listen for 80% of the time, talk for 20, which is the opposite of what I feel like I do on these calls. So apologies. Does that help? Great. Brilliant. Anyone else got anything to go? Anything they've worried about or they're concerned? If you are signed up to the Money Tree fundraising newsletters, you'll see that I've put a bit of an ask out this week about the I'm redesigning our training projects. If there is anything you feel you need training with or you need support on, or you'd like to do an in-depth session on, Hannah, I've identified my major donor prospects or places I want to go, but what the hell do I say and do with them next? Let me know. That is something that I could do. Thank you very much, Juliet. Glad you've had a great time. I am about to do a webinar on volunteer fundraising boards. So if you are looking to set up a volunteer fundraising board and you don't know how to do that or where to get started, I'm doing 2-part session. I'm doing one in March. I'll just bring it up about forming your network, how to work with senior volunteers and to put them into a group scenario. And then the second part is when you've got them in that scenario and they're functioning as a board, what the hell do you do? So a bit more of the problem scenario, challenges, keeping them performing. That might be for you, that might not be for you, but those are the 2 that are up live at the moment. I will, of course, do next March. We have this session again, very similar format to that as well. So that is on, so I'm just pulling up the date, the 10th of March. So gosh, that will come around quickly as well. So again, if you've got questions, queries, I usually pick a theme like we did today based on what people have messaged me to chat about. So if you want me to do something in depth to kickstart the session, let me know, because I'd be very happy to do that. But with that in mind, if no one's got anything else they want to chat about, by all means, I'm going to let you go. Go and enjoy your afternoon, stay dry, keep well, maintain your sanity if you are on half term anytime soon. And yes, by all means, feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn if you aren't already. And I look forward to seeing lots of your familiar faces next time as well. But yes, good luck, enjoy it. And yeah, my inbox is always open, so feel free to email me, message me on LinkedIn whenever. I'm always happy to chat to you all because you're such a brilliant community. So take care, everyone, and I'll see you hopefully next month. Okay.
Thank you.
Take care. No
Thank you very
worries.
much. Have a lovely day.
You too. Bye.